Welcome. It's so great to see everyone today. Thank you so much for coming to today's session. It's awesome to be here, and it's awesome to see everyone here. My name is Joe Fitzgerald. I'm the general manager of the Amazon S3 Glacier team here in AWS. And the focus of today's session is going to be preserving and maximizing the value of digital media assets using Amazon S3. One of the most exciting things about my role is the opportunity to get to talk with customers every day about how they're using digital media and how they're using Amazon S3 and Glacier to help them with their storage challenges. So I will start off today's session by talking about 3 of the trends that I see as the biggest ones shaping how customers in media and entertainment are using digital media and using Amazon S3 to preserve and maximize the value of their media. But what's exciting for me is, in addition to the perspective that I will offer, you will also get to hear directly from 3 of our leading customers who use Amazon S3 and Glacier every day to store digital assets and to reinvent their business. Really, some luminaries who are from the media and entertainment space. After I present my perspective, you'll get to hear from Patrick Scott from Warner Brothers. And Warner Brothers is a really exciting customer for me to hear from. Warner Brothers really has one of the world's most extensive and important collections of movies and television, going back nearly a century. I grew up watching some of their shows and love watching their movies. So when you hear Patrick talk, you'll really get a sense of just how critical this digital content is to their enterprise, the level of work that they go to preserve and manage, and how they use Amazon S3 to help with that challenge. After we hear from Patrick, we'll get to hear from Jay Brown from CNN. CNN really pioneered the concept of running breaking news in a 24-hour news cycle. And when Jay talks, he'll talk about how CNN was able to migrate their on-premises storage and media archive onto the Amazon cloud using S3 and Glacier. And by doing so, they were able to simplify their operation, lower cost, and still have the agility to respond to breaking news as one of the world's leading news organizations. And then after Jay, we'll get to hear from Scott Gooderman from the PGA Tour. And what I think you'll hear from Scott's talk is just really an arc of invention that has come through in how the PGA Tour has been able to use really the breadth and depth of all of AWS services to completely reimagine the customer experience of how they bring footage from the world's best golfers in the world to their viewers. So I'm excited because you'll get to hear 4 different perspectives on trends in digital media and how customers are using Amazon S3 and Glacier. And while the customers you hear from today come from the media and entertainment space, I think that customers, regardless of which industry you work in, have lots of opportunities to kind of look at their media, look at their archive storage, and really reimagine how they use it. So we have a lot to cover here today. I apologize in advance if we go at a slightly more than the glacial pace that I'm used to doing, and I'll try to minimize the bad dad jokes. So let's get into it. So like I said, I'll start things off by talking about the 3 big trends that we see in terms of how customers are using digital media in S3. The first one we see is around managing an unprecedented growth, exponential growth in the amount of data that customers are responsible for. Not only are customers seeing an amazing amount of growth, but they are also managing really priceless and irreplaceable content. And finally, customers are looking to maximize the value of their archival data in order to unlock business value. So we'll go into more depth on each of these trends, and then you'll get to hear directly from some of the change makers in the industry, Warner Brothers, CNN, and PGA Tour, about how they are thinking about digital media storage and using S3. So like I said, the first trend we see is just managing exponential growth of data. And if you stop and think about it, it's perhaps not that surprising. Data is really all around us. And as an example, just to kind of ground us, if you think about, all of us are probably carrying, digital phones in our pocket with digital cameras, like 20 megapixel cameras that we have with us all the time. Probably snapping selfies of all the action at reInvent and posting that on social media to kind of share with our friends and coworkers who can't be here. Or, to be honest, in my case, when I get back home, I like to, document, every waking moment of my 3 kids' lives, and I can sense they're already starting to regret how much content I've accumulated of them. And that's just like digital photography. If you think about some of the other types of content that you have in media and entertainment, if you think about music and video and television shows, just think about all the streaming services you have access to, at an instant. All the content that is being generated to serve those services. And if you step back to think about some of the studios who have been in operation for decades, just years and decades, and in some cases nearly a century of original content. So there's just really a massive amount of data that customers are dealing with. And it's sometimes staggering to me as someone who kind of thinks about storage every day. And just to broaden it beyond media entertainment, the IDC estimates that there's over 101 zettabytes of data being created and replicated in the world in 2022. Let's think about that. 1 year, 101 trillion gigabytes. It's coming from everywhere. In addition to kind of the TVs and movies and music, think about autonomous vehicles and kind of the sensor data that those are generating. If you think about machine learning and training and analytics, there's just so much data being produced right now. And while having that much data, powers a lot of these businesses, it creates a lot of opportunities. It also brings a lot of challenges. There's a lot of data to store. Sometimes customers are dealing with, okay, how do I manage, my data centers, or dealing with like data center upgrades, the logistics of that, dealing with storage technology upgrades, or cost. With a lot of data comes a lot of cost. And one thing that we often tell our customers to help them think about dealing with a lot of data, and particularly with some of the customers that we're talking about here, is that there's a lot of data, but most of the world's data is actually cold. Your data is colder than you actually might realize it is. And the cool thing about cold data is it's not data that is doesn't have value. It's not dead data. Cold data is just data that you're not using at this moment of time. So if you think about it that way, it potentially offers a different way for you to think about how you view kind of the massive amount of data. And we find that a lot of customers are coming to S3 to help with storing all of that data. And that's not surprising. Amazon S3 and Glacier have over 16 years of building highly scalable, highly resilient, highly durable, highly secure storage services. And we have a number of different storage classes that are purpose-built for pretty much every workload imaginable, from the hottest and highest performance storage to cold and truly archival data, and pretty much everything in between. So for the customers we talk about, a lot of times they're coming to S3 Glacier to help manage kind of the scale and growth of the data. And within S3 Glacier, we have 3 purpose-built storage classes that are designed specifically for archive storage. The first one that we talk about is S3 Glacier Instant Retrieval. S3 Glacier Instant Retrieval was launched about this time last year, and customers have loved it since its adoption. It's growing very rapidly, and there's good reason for that. S3 Glacier Instant Retrieval is designed for cold, archive data that you don't access very often, but when you need to get access to it, you get access to it quickly. So it offers millisecond retrieval time and synchronous storage. And it's for many of the customers we talk to, it's a great option for very large data sets where you want a very good price performance for that data, but you need to get access to data instantly. So it's a fantastic option. A second option we offer is S3 Glacier Flexible Retrieval. This is the original Glacier offering that we launched over 10 years ago. And customers still love it. They find that it offers an even lower price point than S3 Glacier Instant Retrieval. And it provides a lot of flexibility. It offers retrieval times in minutes to hours, depending upon which option you use. And another benefit of using S3 Glacier Flexible Retrieval is that if you use the bulk restore option for data from Flexible Retrieval, you don't pay any retrieval fees. So there's a lot of use cases that find benefit and that cost predictability around restore and retrieval performance. And finally, we offer S3 Glacier Deep Archive. This is the lowest cost archive storage in the cloud. And customers love it for its lower than tape price point. And it's just a great option for when the lowest cost is the most important thing. So for truly cold workloads, compliance records, video footage, historical data sets, it's just a fantastic option for storing data very inexpensively, but still having the benefit of S3 resilience and 11.9's durability. Those are the 3 purpose-built storage classes. We also find customers using S3 intelligent tiering for archival data. And S3 intelligent tiering is unique in that it's the only storage class in the world that automatically optimizes the price that you pay based on how you access the data. So if you access the data less frequently, you pay less money. And it's a really great option if you don't know what the access pattern for your data is, if the access pattern for your data changes, or if you just want a super easy option for being able to save money. We've found that since intelligent tiering launched in 2008, customers have saved over $750 million by storing their data in S3 intelligent tiering compared to storing the same data in S3 standard. And that savings just accrues every month and every year. So our first trend is just customers dealing with unprecedented growth of data and looking to S3 to help manage and deal with the scale of that data growth. The second trend we see is not just the growth of the data, but how critical that data is, and how, in many cases, that data and those assets are priceless to these enterprises. And if you stop to think about it a little bit, that's perhaps not surprising too. And I'll go back to my simple example from before. This is a selfie that I took of me and my oldest son at a Seattle Kraken game a couple weeks ago. The official sport of the Glacier team. And I go for the hockey, he goes for the free pizza, and it kind of works out fairly well. I joke about all the photos that I take, but the honest truth is each of those is deeply important to me. Each of those represents a unique moment in time, and kids grow up very quickly, and it's just so special to be able to kind of go back and reflect on those moments. And I go to personally great lengths to make sure those photos are preserved so that we have them forever. And if that's just my simple example, you can only imagine how customers who are dealing with some of the priceless content that they're responsible for go to tremendous and innovative lengths to make sure that the data is protected. And if you think about it, oftentimes we're dealing with original, high-quality assets that, are really the bedrock of these companies. They often end up being, remastered or remixed or otherwise reused, for decades following their creation. So, these are literally priceless assets, for these companies. And, it's really special for me to get to work with them. Again, we're finding that for this challenge, customers are finding a lot of benefit in using S3, really as the safest place to store your data. And there's really a lot of reasons for that. It really starts ground up from our architecture. AWS now has 30 regions, spread across the world. Each of those regions is comprised of multiple different availability zones. Each of those availability zones is independent power cooling. And is physically separated from the other availability zones by multiple kilometers. So we have a fantastic and really unparalleled degree of infrastructure to build upon. And then you add on top of that everything that we do in S3 and Glacier with over 16 years of experience is building a highly resilient and highly durable service. And there really is no compression algorithm for that experience at storing that type of data at scale. And in addition to kind of the capabilities that you get from the ground up, S3 also offers a number of features that are specifically designed to help put you in charge of the security and the integrity of the data. We offer features such as S3 Object Lock, which allows you to make objects immutable. We offer a lot of different replication features to give you the capability, for example, to do multi-region replication to add additional resiliency if that's something that's important to your enterprise. We also offer a lot of different flexibility around checksummings to allow you to manage the integrity and the provenance of your data. So a lot of different things that we do to help make S3 a safe and secure place for your data. And just to put that into perspective, right now, like as part of the, normal and, like extraordinary, really, operation of the system, like S3 performs over 4 billion checksum computations per second as part of the work that our systems do to be constantly validating and checking to make sure that the data that you put into S3 is just as it should be. So just a really unparalleled degree of engineering goes into the amount of durability that we provide. And as an engineering leader, in addition to kind of the the work that goes into the systems, like there really just is an unparalleled culture of durability within all of the engineering teams. And when you store your data in S3 and Glacier, it's benefiting from a team whose engineers, like every day, they wake up thinking about how to raise, what is already a very high bar for the durability, security, and resiliency of data. So there really just isn't a place like S3 to kind of store this type of data. So to recap, the first thing we see is like customers dealing with, an explosion and growth of the data, and we also see customers going to great lengths to preserve what is really critical data. The last thing we see is customers looking to maximize the value of the data. And a couple slides earlier, I mentioned how most of the world's data is cold. And what we're finding is, even though that data is cold, they are still looking to ways to maximize the value of that. And one way they're doing that is by restoring that data from archive. Right now, over 1 petabyte per day is being restored from Glacier Flexible Retrieval and Glacier Deep Archive, our two coldest storage tiers that I mentioned earlier. So that's just an example of the way that customers are always looking to find value in the data that they have. And one thing I'd like to emphasize, this isn't just about backups and emergencies. Those are obviously super important and are great use cases for S3 and Glacier. But we frequently see customers placing large requests for large or infrequently accessed data, photo libraries, media, machine learning retraining, things like that. So there's just lots of ways that customers are looking to find value from their data. And 2 weeks ago, on November 15th, we announced a performance improvement for S3 Glacier Flexible Retrieval and S3 Glacier Deep Archive, which makes it even easier than ever to get data back and to benefit from high throughput retrievals. So this capability is available at no additional cost, and you continue to use the same APIs that you did today. So it's just another example of the constant innovation that we are working on behind the scenes to make our product better and even easier for you to use. So just some of the ways that we see customers unlocking the potential of data. And I'll bring it back to the 3 customers that we get to hear from today. We see customers using their data to open up new opportunities. And I think when you hear from Warner Brothers and the investment they've made over nearly a century to store and manage content, they're always able to kind of leverage that data to be able to create new experiences and open up new revenue streams that they hadn't imagined when that data was originally archived. We also see customers looking to improve their agility with their data. And I can think of no better use case than CNN being able to move their archive to the cloud and still respond to breaking news that is just front and center in terms of their news operation. And we also see customers looking to invent and recreate new customer experiences. And I think when you hear from the PGA Tour how they've been able to modernize and reinvent and reimagine how they bring golf footage to their customers, I think you'll really get a sense of how customers are really able to reimagine and really leverage the full potential of AWS to really unlock the potential of your data. So to recap, we see customers, managing, just a tremendous growth in the amount of data that they're responsible for, looking to preserve that data because of how critical and important it is to their enterprise, and then also looking to constantly maximize the value of that data. Soon, you'll get to hear directly from 3 of our customers, but I wanted to just take a quick moment to thank and acknowledge the millions of S3 customers who use S3 to store their data with us today. Just a few of which you see here on the screen. Over 90% of our roadmap comes from your feedback, and the trust that you place in us to store your data, raise the bar, constantly improve the product. Just something that we never take for granted, and we're always grateful and appreciative of customers who use S3 for their storage. So Without further ado, I'd like to hear directly from some of these customers. And first, we'll have the opportunity to hear from Patrick Scott from Warner Brothers, who will discuss all the innovation that they have done to manage one of the world's most important and incredible television and movie archives. Please join me in welcoming Patrick Scott.
Good afternoon. As Joe mentioned, my name is Patrick Scott. I'm a product manager at Warner Brothers. I work on our media supply chain, and I'm here today to talk to you about preserving the stuff that dreams are made of. This is a quote that our CEO likes to invoke from our classic film, The Maltese Falcon. I also think it's a way our archive team thinks about their role and their charter in the company. Not just warehousing content, but preserving cultural artifacts for the future. So if you follow the media and entertainment news at all, you're probably aware there was a transaction recently. The Warner Media companies were recently brought together with Discovery, creating a new company, Warner Brothers Discovery. This new company obviously has aspirations to be one of, if not the biggest media companies in the world. It's combining brands across film, television, news, comic books, direct-to-consumer. It controls some of the great IP franchises in the world, like DC Comics, Harry Potter, Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. Oh, sorry. In the center of this large conglomerate is the movie studio, Warner Brothers, which is approaching its 100th year anniversary. We recently moved into a new office building, affectionately dubbed the Second Century Building, which is meant to mark this occasion, but also show our promise to continue to move through the next century of work. The studio was founded by four brothers, as you can see here, and as you can see from the rest of the slide, it's the home to some of the greatest films ever made, as well as some of the most popular television in the world. Now, 100 years of making content through all the different format changes and technology evolutions means from just a pure physical standpoint, we have quite the storage challenge in front of us. This challenge is handled in a myriad of ways. We have state-of-the-art cold vault facilities on the lot in Burbank for managing all of our film assets. We use specialized storage in salt mines in Kansas, 650 feet underground to manage much of our content. And then for specialized assets like nitrate film, we might use specialized vendors to make sure that those things stay as safe as possible. However, that's physical, and that's really just storage, whereas we're really concerned not just with storage, but with preservation. And because of the nature of physical media formats, we know that there's no guarantee that the next time we go into one of those vaults to pull out that master, that it's going to be there in a high enough quality for us to do something with it. Film degrades, formats go extinct, fire and vermin do not discriminate between outtakes and Stanley Kubrick masters. We have to be aggressive in how we work to preserve this content. And so a charter's been created for our archive team to go out and preserve our content to every extent possible. And that charter includes the direction to preserve this content for the life of the studio plus 300 years. And obviously, to put that in perspective, the country we're standing in right now is less than 300 years old. So we're looking on a time horizon that is somewhat unprecedented in modern terms. And we're really trying to think about how we can make these things durable for a long time. And obviously, one part of that is digitization. Right? We have to look at how we can digitize these physical assets to preserve them for our lifetime. Now, on our road to digitization, much like Mike TV from Willy Wonka, we've learned some things along the way. We've had to change vendors, we've shifted strategy, we've often had unexpected costs that come with this project, but all through it, we've also been investing. We've been investing in high-tech equipment that allows us to take those physical masters and scan them into digital formats for that future preservation down the line. We're also aware, obviously, that digitization is not without its risks. As I stated, we're working on century-long horizons, and thus far, the only format that's proven to be durable for 100 years is film. However, the benefits of digitization are manifest. Object parity, fixity checks, the things that will allow us to know if something is failing as a piece of content, that we can go take action to make sure that it's restored or fixed before we lose any valuable data. This focus on digitization has also given us some great opportunities to innovate and try new things. Just a couple of examples. On the left side, you can see the tape library that we, I'm sorry, where we collaborated with a major university to build the first iteration of our vault. And then on the right side is an example of the sort of more future-looking things that we've tried out along the way. We've partnered with startups and other large technical companies trying to innovate with how other things can be stored. We've looked at strands of DNA. We've also looked at storing content on etched glass, which is what you see on the right here. That piece of glass holds the full feature for Richard Donner's The Superman from 1978. However, the tape libraries, these future-forward sci-fi things, none of them are true scalable opportunities for us now, so we needed to go into what's available now, and that's taken us to AWS. So the journey to the cloud started about 10 years ago when we decided we were going to make a big push into digitization, and it required a pretty substantial pivot about 5 years in when the terrestrial approach just clearly wasn't going to work and we knew we needed to move to the cloud, and that's when we partnered with AWS. It turned out to be a good thing because when everyone got sent home during the COVID lockdowns, we were still able to deploy the new media asset management tool that we'd chosen, as well as continue to archive content on a running basis, never losing a step in the process. So let's talk about AWS and the architecture that we have with them. AWS is helping us achieve our solution holistically. It's everywhere in our solution. Our full MAM can be deployed across AWS in its standard compute resources, but we're also able to containerize various microservices that allow us to only use those MAM services when we need them, saving on compute costs along the way. And S3 is the lifeblood of the solution. Utilizing the various tiers of S3, we're able to move content through our workflow with cost optimization, as for instance, when new content is ingested. This is an example of a Vault ingest workflow. Very straightforward, but you can see how we're utilizing the various aspects of S3. We work with vendors who prepare packages that they deliver into the Vault environment, either via API or UI. Those packages initially sit on S3 standard. At that point, the software begins to do its work. One of the first things that happen is we transcode a proxy. That proxy is utilized by technicians when they're evaluating the content. That proxy sits on S3 infrequent access. We don't need regular access to it, but we don't need it in deep storage either. We need it to be available for users to do their work. As the content is QC'd, all the metadata is checked, and everything's validated to be good for ingest into the Vault, the user take action, and that package is then copied into Glacier Deep Archive. Once the package is successfully ingested into the Vault and safe in Glacier Deep Archive, we're able to go back to the copy that's on S3 standard and delete that copy, saving on costs and making sure that we have the most optimized experience as well as the most optimized cost model. So that's how it's working. So let's talk about what's working with AWS right now. The first thing, and I know you hear this often in these contexts, is clarity on costs. Working with AWS, we not only have a very good understanding of what our costs are at any given moment, but we're also able to forecast our future costs so we can plan accordingly as the scope of the archive grows. We also have room to grow. And this is a big thing in media companies. Often media companies have a lot of terrestrial storage, SANs on the lot, things like that, but they're almost always full. And managing capacity in those environments is often a full-time job. AWS eliminates that challenge for us because there's always a place for us to put new content, and we never have to worry about managing the storage itself. That has a knock-on effect for us, which is the simplified and expanded ingest. Because we work with vendors to prepare these packages, the fact that we have room to grow means that we have to do much less coordination with the vendors to bring this content into our environment. It's almost a no-touch process in that sense. Innovation. AWS has been an excellent partner. They've invited us to contribute to the roadmaps for things like S3 and for their fixity roadmap. We've eagerly accepted those opportunities, and we've been able to work and make sure that we influence the roadmap so it meets all of our requirements to have true fixity on our preserved assets. And then finally, integrations. And this is a simple thing, but it's very important for us. Having our vault in the cloud means it's no longer a walled garden. We're now able to take advantage of the various services that AWS offers, simple integrations, SNS, API gateway, but it allows other enterprise services around the studio to take advantage and access the data that's in the vault. So it's not just sitting on some file share somewhere that nobody has access to, but now people can go look at what's there and make business decisions based on what's been preserved. So that's what's working now. Now let's talk about what's next. Well, the first thing that AWS gives us an opportunity to do is to look at additional libraries. As I mentioned earlier, we're part of a growing company that's been built through merger and acquisition. We're often being asked by other parts of the company, hey, do you have a place to preserve things? Now, we can always take that call and say yes, because AWS has given us a place that we feel is scaled to any scenario. Other things that we also feel like we're well prepared for are new complex formats and specs. AWS has shown themselves very helpful in helping us confront any new formats and specs. And we feel like if we're confronted with a format or a spec that isn't currently part of the solution, that AWS will partner with us to fill that gap. Reporting and metrics. This is a very simple thing, but right now most of our reporting and metrics are rather crude. We know how much we spend, we know how much data we have, but the granularity of what's in the vault and what's happening there has not been fully explored. And we know that with the tools and services that AWS has, we can begin to work on creating better dashboards for our users that can really understand what's happening in the vault. And then finally, what everyone sort of gets excited about once things are up in the cloud, applied machine learning, right? Now that the content is all in S3 and Glacier, it's much simpler for us to begin to apply machine learning APIs and other services against it, so we have a truer and much richer understanding of all of the content that we've preserved for posterity. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Patrick. It's always exciting for me to hear from Warner Brothers. I actually had the opportunity right before the pandemic in February of 2020 to visit one of the Warner Brothers facilities and see their cold storage and some of the content that Patrick was talking about, and be able to see just how iconic this content is and the great lengths that Warner Brothers goes to preserve and protect it. And it's awesome to see that they're able to use S3 to help them with that challenge. So thanks a lot, Patrick. Now, I'd like to invite Jay Brown from CNN onto the stage. Jay is going to talk about CNN and how they've been able to migrate their digital archive onto S3 and AWS to continue running one of the world's leading news organizations. Please join me in welcoming Jay Brown.
Thank you, Joe, and thanks for the invitation to come talk about this project. I'm very excited to talk about and tell you all about what we've been up to with Glacier. So my name is Jay Brown. I've been with CNN and affiliate companies for 20 years now. And I've been, in all of my roles at the company, one of my biggest focuses this whole time has been helping the CNN library digitize and preserve their enormous news footage archive that goes back 40+ years to when CNN was founded. I also want to shout out to my colleague Harry Schaefer, who's our enterprise architect on this project. All right, so I'm going to start by throwing some numbers at you. I just want to give you an idea of what the scope and scale and magnitude of this is. So, so the CNN video library, what we're talking about is the actual broadcast quality footage that we've recorded for and edited for all of major news events for the last 40 years. So this is our SD and HD, our legacy SD and our current HD house format for broadcast. So these are enormous files by many standards. And so, we're always adding more to it. This archive grows 5 terabytes a day, every day. Hundreds of hours of video are added to it every day. And how it's used is it's not just video sitting around. that occasionally gets access for some special project. This is content that's recalled and restored on a daily basis. And we're restoring hundreds of files a day. The interesting thing is our access pattern. So currently, on average, 25% of the content that we restore on a daily basis is 90 days old or newer. Well, another 25% of it is 5 years old or older. And of course, everything else is somewhere in the middle. So we have a vast archive of content, and we're recalling hundreds of files a day back from the millions of files that we have, but which ones we're going to need on a particular day, we don't know. And the challenge is that our SLA to the business for restoring these files to get them to air or for edit is measured in minutes. So where we were and where we've been with all of this, we actually built our first digital archive on premises in 2005, and we've continued to operate it since then. It's a centralized on-premises storage in a single location. We have backup media that we keep off-site across town on a shelf somewhere. This system serves CNN worldwide and thousands of users on a daily and weekly basis. One of the things we realized was that we had set this up and it was working and everything was great, but we had no real DR plan. And that became very real for us in 2008 when a tornado rolled right through downtown Atlanta and actually took out some windows in the building just a few steps away from the data center, a data center with windows that houses our tape robots. So it was a close call in 2008. So we had to get on that. So eventually, as we were trying to work out business continuity solutions for this, we felt that cloud-based solutions were advanced enough, and we hadn't really had any success justifying another on-premises system as a backup. So where we thought we were going when we started this project was a cloud archive as a backup and a business continuity solution for the business, which would kind of initiate a gradual move to the cloud, but we would still continue operating our on-premises storage, and with an idea that at some point in the future, maybe the cloud would become primary storage, once we were able to coax the business into getting comfortable with the idea. Well, that was the original plan, and then a few years ago they came to us and said, "Hey, we're thinking about selling the building. It's going to be a while. Do you think at some point you could make the cloud the primary storage for the system?" And we were like, "Yeah." We had been working with Amazon and S3 long enough that we felt very comfortable that at some point in the future we could make that work. Well, then a few months later they came back to us and they said, "Well, we've sold the building and we have to be out by the middle of 2024, so you need to make this work." So we had to do a big pivot. So where we needed to go was the cloud archive as the primary storage as well as a backup solution, and an immediate move to the cloud. And even more urgently, a move to the cloud before our current storage filled up because they weren't going to buy us anymore. And so we had to make cloud work as the primary storage now and support our full production workflows and workloads with it in the time frame we had before we had to get out of the building. So this presented us with a number of challenges. We had over 26 petabytes of legacy content stored on premises that we had to migrate to the cloud, as well as keeping up with the daily 5 terabytes And we had to do this without impacting production, of course. So what we ended up with is a multi-region strategy, and we're using two different tiers in our strategy, and we have our content split across the two regions. We don't have two copies. We don't have two, well, I have a picture that'll help describe it a little bit better, but we have copies in two regions. We have a primary and a secondary copy, and we're leveraging cross-region replication to make that happen. As far as our tiers that we selected, Glacier Deep Archive was an obvious choice for our secondary or our backup storage. And initially we started using Glacier Flexible Retrieve for our primary storage. And we had already done a lot of work to get ready for that and to make that work. And we had already started putting some content in the cloud when our AWS folks told us, hey, we've got this new tier, it's called Glacier Instant Retrieve. And it sounded too good to be true when they were describing it. And based on our access patterns, and the fact that pretty much every retrieve we would be doing would be an expedited thaw, when we sat down and looked at it and ran the numbers, the cost difference for our access patterns and use cases was kind of hard to tell what was the difference. So switching to Glacier Instant Retrieve for our primary tier was an absolute no-brainer and a real game changer in terms of our confidence in being able to meet the demands of the business. So this is just a architecture diagram to prove that we actually did something, but you can see we've got 10 buckets, 5 primary buckets in each region, and then the backup copy for each object is in the opposite region. And now that we have all of our content in the cloud, in S3, we're also able to leverage, it gives us an opportunity to leverage the other media-centric products and services that Amazon has. And so one of the main ones we're already making use of heavily is AWS Media Convert for transcoding content. Some of our older content, we have to transcode it on the restore in order to have it in a format that the editors can work with. And so it was very seamless to integrate that service into our process. So where we are today is we've stopped writing content to our on-premises library. So we stopped writing in October with maybe a month or two to spare in terms of how much actual storage we had left on premises. So but we did it, we made it, and we're now archiving exclusively to the cloud. We've migrated, when I made this slide several weeks ago, I wasn't quite sure where we'd be today, and I wanted to be conservative, so I said, well, surely we'll at least be 80% complete. So I didn't want to overestimate because I didn't want to jinx us, but we're actually 90% complete in migrating our 26 petabytes to the cloud. So as a result, we're in the process of decommissioning planning for the decommissioning of this on-premises hardware ahead of our move out, instead of having to plan for yet another media migration and yet more expansion for more hardware and more integration. And we are now supporting our complete production workload and meeting our SLA from S3 and Glacier. So that's all I've got today, and I just want to thank the AWS team for everything they've done to help make this project a success. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Jay. There was so much I took from Jay's talk. I think if one thing that we've all experienced more than we've probably wanted to over the last 3 years is just having to deal with the unexpected and having to pivot in response. So I love that how CNN was able to kind of take advantage of S3 and AWS to be able to respond to yet another challenge in order to run their news operation. So thanks a lot, Jay. And now we get to hear from our third and final customer. Scott Gooderman from the PGA Tour will share how the PGA Tour has moved their media asset management into the cloud to continue to innovate and reimagine the experience of the world's best golfers. Please join me in welcoming Scott Gooderman.
Thank you, Joe. Nice to be here. Thank you to AWS for letting us have this opportunity to present what we do technically at the PGA Tour. I'm Scott Gooderman. I'm the SVP of Digital Operations and Broadcast Technologies. My teams oversee essentially all the fan experiences at the PGA Tour and all the delivery of all the video content out to all of our partners and all of our fans. So as part of what we're doing at the PGA Tour, a big goal of ours is, of course, to preserve our history. We literally have hundreds of years of, not hundreds of years, but over 100 years of being able to produce and show golf, going back to some of the earliest footage. So, it goes back to, Walter Hagen and includes Tiger Woods, Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus. So it's a great heritage that we have to preserve. In addition to that, we're continuing to create more content and more content with our new stars and new and up-and-coming players. So what's really important for us now is not only to preserve what's happening as it goes on, but be able to get that out to our fans, get that out to our other platforms, and get that out to our other experiences all the way across the board. So about 10 years ago, our team at PGA Tour Entertainment began to launch what was the first of our MAMs, our Media Asset Management System, which really, very similar to what you've heard today, was a very physical system. It was a lot of videotapes. It was in storage. We used Iron Mountain. It all had to be maintained. We were building out in a hardened facility that we have in Florida. And as we began to grow that, it became more and more obvious that as we reached kind of 5,000 hours of new content, and we needed this content to reach many more people needed to have access to it, we really needed to get to make our MAM available over the internet and really begin to make it accessible. And really with our partnership with AWS, where we started really in 2012 with the digital properties, and we started putting our digital properties into the cloud, we also then began to turn to see what could we do with the cloud with the Media Asset Management System. So those teams about 2 years ago began that work. And as of this year, we've moved our entire archive up into the cloud, which makes it accessible to all of our partners, not only through our platforms and for our fans, but it also makes it available to everybody that is a rights holder at the PGA Tour. As a matter of fact, one of our partners, our TV partners, actually used to have an extra truck that they used to truck around on site that had all of the tapes that they needed to call back to in order to get a highlight reel. If they needed something that Tiger had done in the past or Rory McIlroy had done in the past, they call over the other truck. Somebody would have to find the tape. Somebody would have to edit, send it back to the broadcast. By that time, like 20 shots have probably gone by, and then they have to re-reference how you get to that shot for the telecast. So now we're able to actually do that on the fly, and we allow our partners to do on the fly. This allowed us to eliminate an entire truck on site, and it's also allowed us to eliminate over 16,000 VHS tapes that we had in storage, which we just recently literally burned and kind of left behind, so that now that we are entirely in the cloud. So our goals here, again, were scalability. We have, as we have normally, in the past, we used to show 3 hours of golf 4 days a week. Those days are long gone. Now we're showing pretty much 12 hours of golf 4 days a week across 5 different tours. We have to be able to gather all of that content, get it into a central location, get it up into the cloud, and then get it out to multiple rights holders, which has also increased over the years as well, too. So that became a very important aspect of what we were building with AWS. AWS Media Connect has also become a big part of what we're doing to continue to distribute our live streaming data. For the first time 2 years ago, actually in 2020, and then again in 2021, we implemented what's called Every Shot Live. And that's every single shot was shown live at the Players' Championship for the first time, which is really done at any professional golf event from the very first drive to the very last putt. We had the ability through Media Connect to actually stream 28 streams in the morning, 28 streams in the afternoon, often depending on the number of players. And those, again, had to go out internationally to our international content providers, had to go out to in different types of languages, and it had to go out to our regional partners here in the US as well, too, as well as our digital partners. So Media Connect was able to do that seamlessly. We actually went from taking all of the cameras, about 100 cameras on site for every shot live, which were manned. They, in the first year, went to a truck that was filled with elemental encoders, then up to the cloud. This past year, we actually went straight from the course to the cloud directly, expediting really the delivery of the entertainment that the PGA Tour offers. The other big aspect of our partnership with AWS is expertise. Our teams are really good at golf and really good at golf technologies, but we are not experts in the cloud. We are not experts yet in video production in the cloud, and so that was something that we looked for when we were evaluating partners that would become an official cloud partner for the PGA Tour, which AWS is for us. Really having evaluated kind of the big three, we took a look at it and was hands down that we needed to go with AWS. They were moving in the right direction. They had partners like Warner Brothers and CNN that we could all lean on together to kind of get the expertise that we needed and to continue to grow what we needed to provide to our fans. And then just like everybody else, single facility vulnerability. So while we don't have tornado issues in Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida, we do have hurricane issues in Ponte Vedra Beach. And so a couple times a year we'll get a storm. And while we were in a hardened facility, I think it was a Cat 3 facility, or it is a Cat 3 facility that we have at PGA Tour Entertainment, you never know what's going to happen. And even if the power went off there, we needed to make sure that our TV partners were able to access the content they needed, because we could be producing in Ponte Vedra, but the event could be going on in Los Angeles like at Riviera, and we need to still keep producing that. And by moving into the cloud, it's allowed us to achieve a level of business continuity that's very important to our entire business. So what did we do to get our MAM in the cloud? Just a little bit by the numbers here. So right now we're at 177 assets, over 200,000 hours of content, not hundreds of years. 8.2 million logged entries, so a key part of what we do through a series of partners, as many of the folks here have talked about, is everything comes with metadata. Everything is delivered with metadata. So every single clip, every highlight clip that we have is if Rory McIlroy is about to win the FedEx Cup at the Tour Championship, and we know he's got a 20-foot putt. We have a golf technologies team that has all of that data. And when we produce that clip and it goes into the MAM, we pair those two things together so that we are able to then go into the MAM and find any shot at any time. And that's the way that most of our partners find it. It's also really the way that we deliver it to our platforms, both our apps and our website, to make sure that that highlight shows up on the right scorecard for the right player. And really what that's adding up to now is 13 petabytes of content, which is 13 petabytes plus. So as we continue to enhance the amount of streaming that we do, as we continue to produce more video, that's growing more and more, and there really was no way for us to meet that on kind of the fly and the growth rate that we would have for need for a physical facility. So what's next for us? And really, as I said in the beginning, where it starts for us is what do our fans want? What can we provide to our fans to bring them closer to our players, closer to our events? What can we do to evolve what it means to attend an event? Because while it's great to attend the Players' Championship in Northeast Florida, one of our premier events, not everybody can be there. So what do we need to do to make them feel like they're there? So for us, one of the big steps that we do, we have three kind of implementations here for us. Is over here on my right is our TourCast product, which is kind of our metaverse approach to PGA Tour competition. It's a 3D representation of the entire course, right down to 2 centimeters on the fairways and the greens that our teams map out every single week. Our golf technologies team delivers that data to us, and through that, we're able to actually create these environments that you can move around in just like a video game. And it's a particularly heavy use for our international fans, where they want to come in and watch a replay of a favorite like Hideki Matsuyama, who might have played while Japan was asleep overnight. So that's a big part of what we're presenting. Every one of our video clips internationally goes out and is available in our TourCast. So it has to go quickly from the course into the cloud and then back out to our fan engagement on TourCast. Really here in the middle is one of our next steps, is that's augmented reality, and we have a team that works on our innovation projects, and a big part of what we're capturing is enabling fans to now take out their phones, using our golf technology data and the video through their phones, and actually see our near real-time shot trails as you're standing there on the course just outside the ropes. And a big part of that is helping us deliver that content once somebody's captured it up into the cloud. And then last item I talked about just a minute ago, which is our Every Shot Live presentation, which is where we present every single group throughout the entire week of the Players' Championship. And that's something that we're going to continue to expand across a number of events. We're currently working on an initiative that will actually take our scoring platforms and use cameras as a way to score the entire event. So we will have 120 permanent cameras across the entire course by the middle of next year. What that will allow us to do for the first time is actually throughout multiple events to capture every single shot that our players will take across the course. And when you think about how complex it is, what we do is usually about 200 acres. We usually have 14 live balls, like the balls are actually in the air at the time. That doesn't count other shots that are going on. So what we do is very complex, and we have to move that every single week and do it on a new course. These cameras are going to allow us to have a greater deal of flexibility. And really what we're going to be doing with AWS is gathering up all that content on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, putting that into the cloud. And that's going to go into our next initiative, which is our media lake, which is where we're going to be putting all of our assets, everything from our video assets to our scoring assets to our stats will all go into the media lake. And our goal there is to then work with AWS on AI and ML projects so that we can use that media lake to surface content that fans want to see as they're watching the event or as our production partners want to see. So if Rory's getting ready to take that final shot at the Tour Championship and he is 20 feet, what we want is the AI and ML to say, you know what, Rory's had this same shot 5 times on this green. Here are the video clips that from those shots. Here's the data related to those shots. That really allows our production team to immediately put that into the broadcast, or it may allow you as a fan to customize the type of data that you want to see out of your PGA Tour experience. So this is another big initiative that we're about to engage in. And then we really believe that there will be continue to be more and more opportunities here, not only to serve our fans, but to serve our players. As we get into this new era, we will be able to serve our players every single shot after their rounds are done, immediately after they're done with what we're going to call speed rounds. Is something that we already do to some degree at some events. And then what we'll be able to do is allow them to evaluate their games in between every one of their rounds. Matter of fact, this year at the Players' Championship, the top 2 players actually were reviewing their speed rounds every night after their round was done. And you could see them move up the board. And one of the players actually really remarked, he's like, the fact that I could review my round, review that with my coach, take a look at my swing, gave me an advantage the next day as they came out to play. So it's something we're very excited about with our fans. It's something that we're very excited to provide our players. And AWS has really enabled us to kind of reach this new ground. And we really see that the opportunities are going to be endless, not only to preserve what the PGA Tour has, but to be able to create more entertainment for our fans as well. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. Happy to answer any questions afterwards.
Thanks, Scott. That was so inspiring. When I was a kid, I would often spend Sunday afternoons watching golf with my dad, and over those many years, the experience of watching golf has changed quite a lot. Thanks to the innovation that you see from the PGA Tour and how they've been able to use AWS to completely reimagine their experience, not only for their fans but for their golfers. So, thanks, Scott. So we'll wrap things up. Before we do, I'd just like to give another thank you to my 3 co-presenters, Patrick, Jay, and Scott. Can you please give them a round of applause? Awesome. Well, I hope this was informative to you. And like I said at the beginning, I see every customer that I work with in pretty much every field, regardless of which industry you're working on, there often is an opportunity to look at your data and find different ways to find archived data in your data portfolio. So I'm hoping, regardless of which industry or which company you work for, that what you saw here was inspiring, and then you can find something to take back with you. So our key takeaways that we'd like to leave you with are, first, looking to AWS to archive data is a great way to save money and to save costs, which is something, top of mind for a lot of customers that we talk to. AWS can help protect your data, and by doing so and leaving that responsibility, or a lot of that responsibility to us, help make you, more agile and focus on your business. And finally, really hopefully see here the potential to use this data to reimagine and rethink different business opportunities is really unlimited. And there's just so much capability within AWS and the cloud to be able to do so. So I hope this talk was helpful. I hope reInvent has been helpful for you. There's a lot that we've packed in here. There's a lot of resources that you have access to help continue your learning journey after here, to build a learning plan or to earn storage badges. So I'd encourage you to check out aws.training/storage to learn even more about what you heard about today. And like I said, feedback is always valuable to us, and including for reInvent and how we did in this session. You should already have a survey in your inbox. We'd love for you to fill that out just to help us improve. So we'll stick around off stage to answer any questions, but otherwise, thank you so much for coming. This has been a ton of fun. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference, and have fun at Replay tonight.